Welcome, everyone. I'm Gina Watts here with my co-host, the brilliantly balanced Andrew.
Heyo.
If you believe that school should be more than just essays and GPAs, if you believe that EQs are as important as IQs, and if you expect amazing things from the next generation, then you are in the right place because we believe that too. Today's episode is a meaningful one for me personally. With my background teaching at the college level, we're talking about what it takes to build emotional resilience in higher education. From shifting enrollment to cultural pressure to staff burnout, leading in this space can feel like a pressure cooker. But the right mindset and the right habits can help us rise rather than crack under the pressure.
So good, Gina. So good. And I'm sure there's many people out there who are thinking, I need some of that in my life. So this is going to be a good episode for you guys. But of course, we've got to kick off our episode by talking about our question of the day. So, Gina, are you ready for the question?
I'm usually never ready, but let's.
Okay, so here it is for today. What's a life lesson you learned in college or early adulthood that still shapes how you lead today?
Glory. So many. First of all, let me start with an apology to everyone that was a part of those formative years, because you survived. You survived, or maybe
They also learned lessons during that era.
either way. Thank you. Thank you for walking with me. Okay, well, you guys for those of you that listen to us regularly or rock with us often, you guys know that I have a son who is an adult now. I had him when I was 18. So my formative college years, I was also parenting. I had a baby up until the age of 4, right? For those 4 years of college. Here's the thing that I'll say that I will never forget. John Maxwell, our friend, says, people don't care what you know. They know, they want to know that you care, right? Or something like that. He says it way better. But the point is, I had a professor. Her name is Jackie Albert. And I had a final and I needed to have Christian with me in the room. He had to be like 3, maybe 3 or 4. And I will never forget, we were in this big auditorium and she put him on her back and jumped up and down the classroom, walked up and down the stairs, and entertained him the whole time I did my final. To this day, I just will never forget how she made me feel seen and valued. I was very fortunate that my professors and my learning environment at Penn State Fayette Beverly campus was one that formed me to believe in myself and to believe against all odds that I could be anything that I wanted to be in this world. And so that changed me. And it also made me want to be a great educator because I knew education meant being present to people in their current situation. And how could I love on them through it? So, yeah.
Man.
Mm-hmm.
Gina, I've never heard you tell that story before. That's amazing.
I almost started crying a little bit when I said it, but I got it together. You have a guess.
But it is such a beautiful picture of leadership, right? Sometimes leadership is holding the baby while the student takes the test. And It is only until you accept the premise that it's fundamentally about people, right? And caring for people. Because if she was only thinking about a test that day, you would have been in the way, but she wasn't. And because of that, you'll never think that way either. So that's what great leadership is.
How about you, friend?
Well, I thought of a number of things too. I also made a lot of really dumb mistakes in that era. But one of the ones that comes to mind, I think about all the time, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but when I was 26, I lost my job. The nonprofit I was working for just ran out of money one day. And so it was like, here's a month's severance and our well wishes were the 2 things I was given. And in that era, I had already begun to learn it, but in that era, that was the moment when I really, really learned a fundamental truth. And that is that who you know is far more important than what you know. And that's a significant lesson. I think some people out there are relational and they're like doing sales for their job or connecting with people for their job. And they're like, of course that's true. But I was in content, like my background is in curriculum design. So my life was, I had convinced myself my life was all about what I knew and what I could deliver to people. And what I realized is it was never really about that. And so when I lost my job, I ended up reaching out to a whole bunch of people to kind of tell them what had happened. And I happened to put this little question at the end of my email, and that was, if I can do anything for you, let me know. And I really genuinely meant it, paid or unpaid, and so I had a whole bunch of people who reached out to me. And one of them was a mentor of mine who was like, who you should talk to, just this is a wild hair, but you should talk to that guy, Tim Elmore. And I was like, I don't know him. And he was like, what if we figured it out? And we did. And 2 months later, I was sitting down with Tim, and it changed the trajectory of my life. And it wasn't about what I knew, although that was a significant portion, but it was about ultimately who I knew and the people who were willing to vouch for me and all of that. So to me, it's not lost on me that both of us talked about relational things, Gina, because I feel like that was a huge thing that shaped both of us. So
yeah, that's who we are. And it has made us who we are to this day.
Yeah.
Well, today's guest is really more family than he is a guest. But
agreed.
We're introducing you to family today, friends. Our guest is Dr. R.D. Saunders. He's the 13th president of Ohio Christian University and a seasoned leader in ministry, nonprofit work, and global leadership training. Whether guiding churches through seasons of dynamic growth, leading international charitable efforts, or now shaping the future of Christian higher education, RD brings passion, wisdom, and heart to everything he does. President Saunders brings a wealth of wisdom, heart, and perspective to the table. And today we're grateful to welcome him to the podcast to talk about resilience, pressure, and purpose-driven leadership in higher education. RD, thanks so much for being here.
Gina, thank you. And John Maxwell would probably say something like, man, after that introduction, I can hardly wait to hear what I have to say.
So true. So true. Well, I know I gave you an introduction, but do you mind sharing with our listeners a little bit about yourself and your journey, maybe in education, how you got to this moment, to your current role at Ohio Christian University?
It's a very good question. I wonder sometimes how on earth this happened, because I spent many years in Christian service. I was a pastor for years, and then nonprofit leadership, and worked very closely with John Maxwell and his organization. And I think that connection is probably something that might have caught the attention of the folks here at Ohio Christian, but probably it didn't hurt that I had attended this university. And you and Andrew were talking earlier about your apologies about the mistakes you made. You ought to go back and be the president of the university where you made those mistakes. I mean, goodness gracious, they have my transcripts. So, this was a very painful process for me. But honestly, I'm so grateful. I heard John say one time that he talked to a CEO who had some painful past experiences, and John asked him what he would do differently. And he said, honestly, nothing. I look back and I thank God for those errors and flaws and mistakes that I had, because they really helped to shape and mold my life into what it is now. And I wouldn't want to not have the life I have. So I sort of feel like I see so many things I wish I would have done differently. And yet what would I have lost without the lessons learned from those failures? So I have to say I'm just truly grateful to be in this position. I genuinely believe something that I think is important for every person in education to believe, and that is there's no greater use of a person's life than to shape another person's life, especially a young life. And what really, when I made the decision to take this role, I had a very successful thing I was a part of. It was so meaningful, and I loved every bit of it. It was so fun. I got to work with people like Gina and Andrew and a bunch of others that are incredible. But that decision to leave that role and move into the sphere of education was one that I had to really wrestle with, am I using my life for the very best purpose? And I even had to debate John Maxwell on that subject. And that's, usually that's like a loss. You're going to debate John. It's like you're fighting Tyson, so good luck with that. But John and I talked about it. And in the end, I came to this conclusion. There really is no replacement for impacting a life, because the life that you impact, especially a young life, goes on to make a difference in some case for 40, 50, 60 years. And it's the equivalent of an oil well where I'm from central Ohio, and there's some oil wells periodically you'll see from time to time. And I've seen those oil wells pumping for 40 and 50 years and still churning out something valuable. And if you impact a young life and set them on the right path, that's a life that's going to be making a difference for a long time to come. And why would I not want to be a part of that? So that was the decision that I made. I felt like this is the life equivalent of an oil well. And in my case, a whole field of oil wells that we could cause to impact the world. So anyway, the journey's been very long. I'll be 60. Actually, I'll be 60 this week. So, I look back and I think, my goodness, how did I get here? But I'm not really sure I know, but here I am, and I'm so glad to be here.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And what a great answer. I'm sure there's many people like driving to work listening to this right now and thinking, that's exactly why I'm doing it too, right? The most impactful investment you can make is one in a young life. And so thanks so much for sharing that answer with us. That's a great start to our conversation. I want to kind of sort of mine the gold mine of where you sit right now. So we've talked about it. You've led in churches, nonprofit organizations. Now you're in higher education. Even the people listening who are not in higher ed, they're still thinking about higher ed, right? Because the goal of secondary education is to get them ready for post-secondary education. So I'm just curious about your take, your perspective on the unique kinds of pressures you see in higher ed today and how those pressures are impacting particularly the emotional well-being of both students as well as the leaders, faculty and staff who are trying to lead those students.
Well, I will say that this is, and I've had some big leadership roles, but this is without any question the most challenging of them all. It's really the role where I discovered that everything John Maxwell has taught me about leadership was true. I maybe didn't see it as clearly or as accurately, but I do now, because I've had to rely very heavily on what John has taught me in order to succeed, because there are so many, one of the biggest challenges of higher ed is there are so many constituencies to please. You have the constituency of the students. In some cases, you have a couple of constituencies among the students. There's a whole different world that is the online campus, and then there's the on-campus campus, and then there are possibly the older students, married students, already in life kind of students that you're trying to help. And then there's someone who just got out of high school, so it's a very challenge. And then you add in all the diversity that our friend Tim Elmore has written about that you encounter on a college campus. It's pretty challenging. So then you add in faculty, and that is something that I was even told by other educators, good luck, you'll never lead the faculty. And I cannot say more strongly how untrue that's been for me. At least maybe I'm just having a little beginner's luck or something, but the faculty have been my best friends. They've been so helpful, and maybe I'm just really fortunate at OCU. But then you have all of the stakeholders. If you have a board, if you have, in my case, I have a denominational board and a college board. I have then donors and their support, community leaders. I mean, there are so many constituencies to please. Then you have the reality of enrollment, and enrollment is everything in a university. And 25 universities since COVID that are small Christian liberal arts universities have closed. 25. So, I mean, every other month, basically, you've got a university closing. And these are universities that had a wonderful vision. They had a great mission. They had great people. They had wonderful students. But there just wasn't enough. The combination of all of that was too expensive or didn't produce enough income or whatever it was. But the enrollment battle is the financial battle, and the financial battle is absolutely no joke. And this is not really in a setting where people are making any money. It is that they are giving of themselves and not, many teachers aspire to become a college professor. The fact is there's many college professors that would like to go back to secondary education and work there because they find it to be more secure. So you have a lot of those financial pressures, and people individually are feeling financial pressure to be a part of it. And so there's a constant equation that people are working in their mind of, is this really worth it? Is there some other way I can teach and bless others and help young people and have something that I don't have to wonder if it's going to be around next year? So that makes it for a very challenging leadership scenario for the president. And it's truly a challenge. I'm blessed to be a part of it, though. I don't want to do anything else. In fact, I've made the decision, barring God telling me I had it wrong, that this is where I will spend the rest of my life. I will spend the rest of my life serving in some way. Now, when I retire, who knows what I'll do. But as far as my active working life, it's my hope that I can give this university the rest of my life. And I think it's a very healthy way to lead. If we're always looking for the next thing and we've got what I call destination disease, where I'm always, when I get there, I'll be happy. That's destination disease. I think myself, I'm so much stronger when I've decided, okay, I have no interest. You can talk to me about anything you want to. I have no interest in going anywhere else, but staying right here and pouring out my life to students on this campus. So anyway, and I don't know if I'm answering your question very well, but and you have to understand, I've been an educator for about 5 minutes, because I did something else for so long. But the upside of that is I have fresh eyes. I haven't been staring at this thing for forever. And I see something that allows me to go, why? Why is it like that? Why are we doing it this way? And I don't come in with preconceptions and self-limiting thinking, because I don't know what I don't know. And there's a benefit in not knowing those things sometimes. So anyway, a lot of pressure, a lot of challenges, but I'm very, very fortunate to be a part of it and intend to give education and in this case, higher ed, the rest of my life.
RD, that was so just insightful. I'm sitting here grateful for how you've shared with us your leadership journey from a student to now president. There's so many of us that will most likely never get the opportunity to have that full circle life moment, right? And it might not be from student to president, but something very similar.
Gina, interestingly, we have a name for that around here. Since Ohio Christian University is in Circleville, we call this going full circleville.
No, I love it. I love it.
Being educated by the university and then coming back to help the university.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's true in a lot of university spaces. It's like one of those places where you can grow and also serve at different levels and stages of your life. Throughout your leadership journey, I'm sure that you've had personal practices that have helped you stay grounded and emotionally resilient. Like you just named for us the current experience that you're having as a university president, entering into a season where there's just a lot of uncertainty, right? And he talked to us about what are the things that you put into practice, especially during intense or uncertain seasons, that are helping you to remain emotionally resilient.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've become a real fan of a man by the name of George Mueller. And a lot of people know George Mueller. He was the leader of an orphanage that basically always barely scraped by. And George Mueller said that he felt like that the most important thing for him every day was to find his happiness in God. That if he could approach every day with a joy that comes from the eternal mooring and strengthening and undergirding that you get from a relationship with God, then that would be very helpful. And I realize that we may have a diverse audience, and I don't want to in any way step on anyone's toes, but I found that, I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said, I've often been driven to my knees with the overwhelming sense that was the only place I had to go. And a challenging leadership role is humbling, because you realize whatever you have, you don't have enough. Whatever wisdom you think you have, it's not enough. Whatever strength you think you have, it's not enough. Whatever confidence you think you might have, it's probably not enough. And you're going to have to find a little bit more. You're going to have to find a greater strength and, frankly, a greater vision than the world that you've come from in order to be relevant and to be effective. So for me, I find I've got to find myself daily in a mode of seeking and surrendering to God, but then I've got to seek and surrender to my need to grow. And I think a lot of folks have quit growing. They think they're growing because occasionally they'll glean a new idea or something, but they haven't really been digging. They haven't really been pushing themselves. If there's anything that university seasons should tell us, that a time in a university should teach us, it should teach us the number one thing a university should teach is you got to keep growing. Your growth journey began at this university, and all we do must be to make habit what you've done for 4 years or 7 years or however long you've been there. And that personal growth time, I think it was General Sherman that said that he felt like the most important thing for a leader is to know the answer to everything. I always found that explanation a little curious, because I think the guy that knows the answer for everything is the one that everyone wants to choke. But what I think he meant was to be able to give people confidence that we're going to figure this out, that we're going to know what to do. And so the guy that knows it all, no one wants to be friends with. But if that person is your leader, they can give you comfort. Hey, we're going to figure this out. We're going to find the answer. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Don't worry. I think that's a very comforting thing for folks, because if there's anything the leader has to do, a leader has to help people find faith. And I'm not talking about spiritual faith. I'm talking about faith. We're going to make it. We're going to figure it out. We'll get through this. It's really challenging right now. There's a university president right now that hadn't spent a large portion of the summer sweating. And I'm not talking about the heat wave. I'm talking about the lack of income that every university feels in the summer months. We did some very special things at our place, but to me, you better get ready for those kinds of seasons if you're leading something like a university, because it's going to come and you got to be ready. And as John Wooden says, when opportunity knocks, it's too late to prepare. So we've got to be getting ready all the time. So for me, mental health, strength, peace, ability, energy, all of that is found in what I do before I ever walk in this office door every day. I think some guys would benefit to be late to the office if they came in better. And a lot of folks, man, you just rolled out of bed, right? Maybe you should go back there and spend some time, then come back in, okay? Because that's not good. So every day I got to spend some time getting ready.
That's so good, RD. So good. I love that you brought up what is, I think, a tension for a lot of leaders. You mentioned these two concepts of humility, especially the kind of humility where leadership, driving you to your knees. Yeah. But then you also talked about confidence as a leader, right? And I think a lot of people misunderstand those two concepts and think that confidence, humility is for people who don't feel like enough, and confidence is for people who do feel like enough. But what you basically just said to us is there is a confidence, a true confidence that comes from the act of humility, of falling to your knees and saying, I don't have enough. but that I will find enough in order to keep going, and that my leadership will be more believable because of it.
Yeah, but believability, authenticity are hugely important. I think for a lot of folks, they're thinking, okay, I'm humble, but I'm proud of it. And that makes no sense. And you're right, it doesn't. We're not talking about the kind of confidence that is an arrogance. That actually is more insecurity than it is humility. And there's a big difference between insecurity and humility. Humility is an intentional decision where you recognize that you may not have it all figured out. You may not have all the answers. You may not have all the strength. But guess what? You're going to make it. You're going to figure it out. There's a story, and I don't mean to use a biblical illustration, but there's a story of David and Goliath that everyone knows. And what's interesting about that story was David said, because he had killed the lion and the bear, he was also going to be able to kill Goliath. In other words, his confidence came from the moments when he was in over his head, but somehow found a way to overcome it. And at this point, when I lead this university, yes, I'm in over my head, way over my head, but there's nothing new about that. I've always been in over my head. So if I have confidence, it isn't confidence built on some insecure belief in myself that I'm so good. It's that the trend of my life has been, as I personally, this is just me, okay, I'm not putting this on anyone, but I feel like my life has been a life of serving God who's leading me. And because of that, he's helped me win before, and he's going to help me win now. Now, humility happens all the time because I'll think I know the answer. Man, it didn't turn out right at all. But humility is the breeding ground for growth, because the humbling experiences are the moments you grow. You fly over a mountain range and the mountains are beautiful, but the growth is down in the valley. You don't see the growth up on the mountaintop. It's empty. It's above the timberline. There is no growth up there, very little. But down in the valleys, they're green and lush. And those times of failure and times where I thought I knew what to do and I didn't are times that you can really benefit and get back on top. I really feel sorry for someone that can't make any mistakes. That person is going to deprive themselves of 1,000 lessons that will change their life. So in my mind, the kind of leadership that we all need to live with and have is, hey, we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, we're going to learn from it, and then we'll do it again better. The only way that failure is if you don't learn from it, number one, and if the failure causes you to not try again. Then failure is failure. If you learn from it and you re-engage, then you've taken failure and you've turned the stumbling stone into the stepping stone. And that's what so many people fail. They lock up, they freeze. And it's because they have such an aversion to failure. They're so afraid of somehow disappointing someone. And it's no wonder that they don't thrive, because nobody is perfect. No one's ever been perfect. There's only one in my mind that's ever been close to it, and none of those are there. So fail away, learn away, re-engage, and get better that way. And you'll be a lot happier. And it's kind of rhymes. That's fun.
As our friend John Maxwell likes to say, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn, right? Exactly. I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Well, RD, we're big fans of values-based leadership. Obviously, all of us follow John Maxwell, who's like the king of values-based leadership, at least today. And I wonder if you could talk about how you have seen values-based leadership principles sustain you and sustain other people around you, especially in high-pressure environments and high-pressure moments.
I'll tell you what, there's a vast difference between someone who is growing with values-based leadership and someone who isn't. And you see it in the difficult times most of all. But the thing I've seen, especially I've noticed this around students, the students that are really growing, the peace and comfort and confidence they walk in is so appealing and so attractive. They seem to have found another gear they seem to have found a certainty, a clarity, a maturity, a depth, a stature. They seem to have, like, they've been aimed. In other words, they were a very special weapon that's been developed, and now they're in a position to where they've been aimed and they're about to be launched in that direction. And so the exciting thing for me, for all of those that are in our audience today, is that we are that launching pad. I've heard people say, well, we want to give students a good foundation. No, we want to give them a launching pad. We want to see them explode out of here. And frankly, all of us should have a 40-year view of a student, not a 4-year view. Or if you're in high school, sometimes that you start at 10th grade, like in my high school. But however many years were there, 4 years in high school, 3 to 4 years in middle school, then you have elementary and so on. All of us should think not of that time they're there, but what are we doing to see them have a long and successful life? And how are we building qualities into them? And that's why I'm so excited about what you guys are doing. I mean, talk about a great way to spend your lives. You guys are creating content that schools are going to be using, and I'm very excited about what we're looking at for Ohio Christian University. But already with literally millions of students, you guys are churning out content that's so incredible. So in my own life, I've seen the growth and the confidence and the posture and the bearing that has happened in my life. It may be the greatest quality. I mean, you learn some strategic things, some skill things, but the best thing is what happens within you. I think that was a Zig Ziglar line, that all the things that happen around us are small things compared to what's happening within us. And so values-based leadership gets in you. And when it does, it comes out of you, and it may come out of you in ways that are not especially measurable. They're not necessarily tangible, but they're as real as they could be. We can see it all over their face. We can see it in the way they walk and the way they carry themselves. And that quality is so attractive. People want to be around that kind of quality, that clarity, that joy, that confidence that comes from values-based leadership is literally the most beautiful thing on earth. It's what makes people want to hire someone. It's what makes someone want to date or marry someone. It's what makes someone want to be friends with them. It's what makes people with wealth want to support them, that they have this sense that they're going somewhere, and you just want to be a part of it. So I love values-based leadership. To me, it is the greatest transformational tool in the world today for a young life. If we can pour transformational leadership into the lives of young people at any age, that is the greatest single product we will reap from them down the road, because they get that. They'll get everything else. They get those qualities. They'll get the need to grow themselves every day. They get those qualities. They'll get the need to value others. They get those qualities. They'll understand how important it is to watch your character and be people of character. To me, values-based leadership is the most important thing that we could do to bring transformation to the world. Now, I've talked about spiritual things, and I believe in those things. But apart from that, if we can get transformational leadership training into the hands of every young life, and you guys, we didn't plan this. We didn't say, now, RD, make sure you say this, and you guys didn't give me talking points. I mean, I know what the points are, but this is me telling everyone listening to me from my heart, listen to me. The greatest single thing we can do for the young people of the world is to pour values-based leadership training into their life as soon as possible, as often as possible, as creatively as possible. It's the greatest single thing we can do, and it'll fix half of our problems in life, I think. So anyway, sorry.
No, don't apologize. Don't apologize. We didn't plan it so much so that RD didn't know where I was going next with my question, which was connected to what he shared. We're happy that following the merger of Maxwell Leadership Foundation and Growing Leaders, we're in the season of releasing brand new content that we call I Lead. And it takes the best of what Tim Elmore created in Habitudes and the best of the values-based leadership principles that John Maxwell has created and puts them together into an amazing resource that is literally helping to transform the lives of young people. We, RD actually came up with a statement. We help young people lead from diapers to diplomas, right? Lead themselves and lead in their communities. And Ohio Christian University happens to be our very first university we get to partner with in this new season with this new content. And so we're so grateful. The passion that RD has shared, he also is behind it, right? He's working with his university faculty and students and staff to be a hub of transformational leadership. And so, RD, before we wrap up, Andrew and I just have two quick questions for you. The one that I have for you is just to kind of underline, you talked about leadership and values-based leadership principles in terms of thinking about students and how important it is. But when you think about the student graduating from Ohio Christian University and they're walking out of those doors with these leadership principles in hand, what kind of student is this? What kind of student is graduating and leading their life in their next season after they've spent time at the university?
Well, that is a great question. There was a poem that I first learned from John Maxwell, and I've never forgotten this poem. There are two kinds of people on earth I've seen, just two kinds of people on earth I mean, not the good and the bad, for 'tis well understood the good are half bad and the bad are half good. No, the two kinds of people on earth I've seen are those who lift and those who lean. And what I believe and what I'm determined to create is a mass of lifters. People who leave here with the idea that you have been given an assignment. You are on mission. And I'm not talking about some kind of crazy person with some manifesto. I'm talking about a person who realizes it's not about them. It's about others. Except for one single solitary exception, the entire rest of the world is made up of others. And so in my mind, our graduates are going to be people who go out and see a world full of need. And even though they may be a business person or an educator or someone that works with substance abuse or someone who works in criminology or someone even who's a pastor or eventually someone who graduates from our nursing school, that they understand that they have been sent into the world to make a difference. And there's a great quote by Archimedes that says, "Give me a firm place on which to stand and a lever long enough, and I will move the world." And I believe that a firm place on which to stand is leadership character, and a lever long enough is leadership skills. And then it's up to the student to apply their skills and their energy to lifting. Once they've got the lever of leadership skills, and once they're standing on someplace firm, then it's about their energy and their commitment and their dedication. And it's my hope to see students who are passionately committed to lifting in any arena they may be in, understanding that they've been called to make a difference in that arena and not just be someone who gets something from it, not just be someone, I want our students to get, I want them to all become wealthy and come back and support the university. But in the end, the people who really are difference makers are people who look at the world as something to serve. And that's what I see in our graduates.
What a beautiful answer. Thank you so much, RD. And I'm sure there's a couple of people who are going to be Googling that poem after hearing you recite it so well. Hey, we're here at the end, man. You have given us so much wisdom, so much insight, so much encouragement throughout this conversation. But I want you to kind of end us the way we like to end a lot of these interviews. We're very biased towards practicality. And so I just wonder if you can imagine that leader right now. They're in the car. Maybe they're headed to or from work. It's been a heavy day, or they feel like it might be a heavy day. I wonder if you could just encourage your fellow higher ed leaders, faculty, or maybe even a student listening who's experiencing burnout, discouragement, frustration, whatever it is. What words of wisdom might you offer them today, just as they go about their day as a leader?
Well, there's certainly a lot there. I would say that revisiting your why you're doing this, why it matters, why it's important. Stephen R. Covey told us that it's important to keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is keeping your why before you. I genuinely believe that a lot of folks kind of lose that along the way. And I mean, it's tough to be an educator. You're not in some kind of upwardly mobile arena for the most part. If anything, you're expending more than you're putting in. But my encouragement would be revisit your why. Also, rebalance yourself. A lot of times, the scenario of more going out than coming in is truly the issue. That you haven't grounded yourself daily in something that feeds you. You cannot give people what you do not have. And so the need to be fed and to grow yourself. I talked to a guy, he was telling me about how burnout he was as a pastor. And I said, well, what are you doing to grow yourself? I said, what book have you been reading? He says, I haven't read a book in 3 years. I was like, well, but I don't know what to tell you, man. You gotta be very careful with your own self-care in those cases, and read and grow and learn and develop yourself. And for me, personal growth is energy. And when I have energy, I'm not going to burn out because I got the energy. But burning out is just running out of gas. And so you've got to constantly feed that, know your why. There's a lot that we can do there. I think too, it's still very worth it to invest in students. I know there's a lot of issues with students. I know there's a lot of things, and man, parents and all that stuff, it's a battle. I get it. That was another constituency I neglected to mention earlier, and that's parents. Man, that can be a royal pain to deal with. And I mean, that can be so frustrating. For me, keep your focus on those students, because I tell you what, there's a lot of quality in those kids. Even the worst kids, sometimes they have got so many wonderful qualities, and it's important to see that. I'm reminded of this story that was told of Mother Teresa, and people were asking her as she was working with the lepers in Calcutta. I mean, literally someone face to face with you whose face is rotting before you, and there's the wretched odor. And for Mother Teresa, someone asked her, how can you do this? How can you look in that face? She said, well, I don't see the face of a leper. I see the face of my Lord when I look at that face. And I think sometimes maybe we could see a couple of different faces. Maybe we could see ourselves and realize that if we were in that student's position, we probably wouldn't have been any better. We might have been worse. And so maybe that's a good face to see. And if you're a person of faith, then maybe you could see the Lord. But recognize this, that person is someone beautiful and loved by God. And you know what? They may not have a lot of chances. You might be the only one. And so I just want to encourage you. It's worth it. It's worth it to pour into those young lives. And I'm hoping that maybe something we've shared today can help you along the way.
That's wonderful, friend. Thank you for spending so much time with us today and sharing from your heart, RD. I know that I am always grateful to spend time with you and to learn from you. And I'm confident that our listeners have as well. Thank you, friend.
I've been honored to be a part of it. And if there's anyone that I can serve that's listening to this, just feel free to reach out and let me know how we can serve you at Ohio Christian University.
Thank you, RD. Well, before we wrap up this episode, we're going to do our final segment, DMI. DMI, of course, stands for Don't Miss It. Andrew and I will both highlight the one thing from today's episode that we think that you should pay a little bit more attention to. Andrew, why don't you start for us?
Well, as per usual, Gina, it's hard to pick just one thing. Our dear friend, RD, did such a phenomenal job of bringing so much wisdom. I took a lot of notes. I'm surrounded by Post-it notes right now. But the thing that rises to the top for me that I'm going to come back to and think about for a while is when he said, humility is the breeding ground for growth. It's such a perfect picture of, I think, did you write that down too?
Yep.
I love to steal things from you, Gina. Well, it always feels like I go first and then I steal yours. Sorry, Gina.
Andrew, the point about that I maybe should have elaborated on is the guy that's not humble doesn't think he needs to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah. You got to humble yourself and realize, man, I messed that up. I got to grow. Oh, that didn't go well. I got to grow. I got this problem. I got to grow. That's humility.
Well, and you use the perfect analogy of, we're all so fearful of these valley experiences, but valley is where all the growth is, right? Every single leader right now seems to be searching for these mountaintop experiences. And then, by the way, when I get up there, I'm going to take a selfie and post it on Instagram so that everybody knows exactly where I am. But the reality is the top of the mountain is barren. Yes, it's a great moment, but it's not the place where you grow. The places that force you into growth are those moments in your life where you feel like, I don't have what it takes. And we call that humility, right? And there is no better breeding ground for a season of growth. And I've been through several of those, and it's such an important truth that I think a lot of leaders out there listening right now, maybe that's the one thing they need to walk away with. So, Gina, now that I've stolen yours, you have to tell us what another thing is that we should walk away with. Sir.
Thank God I wrote down 4 G's.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this one I'm gonna share too because I always have to break the rules. But when RD said, right after he said that about humility is the breeding ground for growth, the other thing that he said was, turn a stumbling stone into a stepping stone. And I think it's just a quick little, but like in a season where so many of us are consumers of information and like these little like quick phrases, I think it was a great one to interrupt our behaviors and to interrupt our thinking that like oftentimes we get tripped up by life in general and things that are outside of our control. And instead of learning from them, we stumble and stop. And the charge was to stumble and step, right? Stumble and step. Oh, it's a new teacher. Don't take it.
Good.
Okay. The thing that I was going to say though, was just RD's vision for the type of students that he is helping to form at Ohio Christian University, which is a mass of lifters. Now more than ever, we need lifters in our communities. We need people who think of others before themselves. And to know that one, a friend of mine, as well as just a leader in education, cares so deeply about the formation of students beyond the scope of their academic credentials. It's just good. It's just good work. It makes us have a better workforce. It makes us have better communities. It makes people have better lives overall when their focus is on lifting rather than leaning. So well said. So much fun, friend. Guys, this was such a great episode with RD. We can't thank him enough for sharing his wisdom and everything, all the stories that he shared with us and the phrases and the quotes. We learned so much today. If you want to be connected to RD, check out our show notes. We always provide you guys with updates about the person that we get to interview. You can be connected to him directly if you want. And also, if you are from a university and you're thinking like, hey, I didn't know you guys served universities. Guess what? We do. So make sure you connect with us to learn more about how you can partner with growing leaders to serve your university and your community. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of School on a Mission podcast. Now, before you hit skip onto your next podcast, we've got a little challenge for you. We want you to take a minute, grab a pen, a notebook, a sticky note, or even the back of your hand and write down what action that you're going to take this week. Maybe it's something you're going to do, something you're going to investigate, something you're going to read more about, or maybe it's a person that you want to meet with. You got it? Perfect. Now, take a minute and DM us with your action steps. We can't wait to see what awesome things that you're up to. Until next time, friends, stay curious, stay bold, and keep leading your school on a mission.
Thanks for listening to this episode of School on a Mission, a podcast for educators by educators, produced by Growing Leaders and powered by the Maxwell Leadership Foundation. To learn more about Growing Leaders, visit growingleaders.com. For more about the School on a Mission podcast, head to schoolonamissionpodcast.com.